business of the day, numbers 2 and 3.
Families Commission Act Repeal Bill, Committee Stage. Social Security Legislation Rewrite Bill, Committee Stage.
I declare the House in committee for consideration of the Families Commission Act Repeal Bill and the Social Security Legislation Rewrite Bill. Madam Chair.
Mr. Speaker.
Point of order,
Sick leave for the provisions to be taken as one debate.
Leaders sought for that course of action. Is there any objection? There appears to be none. Okay, members, the question is that parts 1 and 2, schedules 1 and 2 and clauses 1 and 2 stand part. I call the Honourable Alfred Ngaro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise to take a call in the Committee of the Whole House in regards to the Families Commission Act, the Repeal Bill and the Bill of 2003. Madam Chair, I look forward to this bill because this is a well-written bill. It's a bill that's been well thought out over a long period of time, in fact over the last 9 years previously, because it is a bill that came under the national-led government. And so while this is a good bill, we've supported it throughout its different stages, Madam Chair, the changing of the chairs. Madam Chair. What I would say is that this is a bill that is supported by the National Party as it's progressing through the House. However, in the Committee of the Whole House, Madam Chair, there are a number of questions that I think are important that we'd like to see answered by the Minister herself, who I think has been on record and has spoken in the House. In fact, her speech was written, though, I have to say, and when she spoke out, when she delivered the speech, I sensed there was a sense of disregret in reading the speech, because this is a speech that there was a time in which the Minister, who was a member, actually spoke out strongly about the position of the government of the day, the national government, and the position that was taking in regards to the changes. And in fact, if we can remember that this is a long history, this is a history that came from 2003. It was an act that was established out of a coalition agreement. It was done so under the Labour government at that period of time to ensure that there was a focus and direction in regards to research and evaluation that particularly was focused on families, to ensure that any government of the day would take this into account, and in particular where there was a concern that there wasn't enough conversation and discussion, especially around to the detail. And in particular, this is a Crown entity that was established through this Act, so it had both autonomy to be an advocate, to speak on behalf of the needs and the concerns of the community at large. And again, this was led by a Labour-led government. So I can understand that why this was really difficult for the current government of the day to be able to take this bill through the House, because in a sense, we've heard from the Minister, and I'd like to make some quotes from the Minister, who spoke at a time where she did not actually agree with the direction of that current government, which was the national government. In fact, I want to read from her quote, where she talks about the changes that happened in 2014 from the Families Commission to the Superoo. And so she talks about the fact is that the new agency is called the Social Policy Evaluation Research Unit, or Superoo for short. Labour's Carmel Cipollone says it speaks volumes about the government's priorities. In fact, she quotes as saying this, and I begin the quotes, "You have to question how seriously they're taking the work of the Families Commission." She also says, and quotes, "Someone said, well, what do you think? I likened it to the type of sticker a child would get in an assembly on a Friday if they behaved themselves all week." End of quotes. So, Madam Chair, my question to the Minister and the Chair is this, and also to the learned member over here, the Honourable Andrew Little, this I'm sure will interest him as well, is that for the Minister to stand and actually clearly articulate her reasons that why she has shifted her position, why that she has stood up in this House and gave a very strong commitment to the purpose and the principles of this bill, when quite clearly there was a position that she held. She spoke very strongly. She talked about the factors is that the direction of the current government of the day, in which, point of order, Madam Chair, I don't have no counter. I'm not sure where I'm at the moment. I'm happy to restart again, right from the beginning, if you'd like.
My counter has you with a minute left to go.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I'm just unaware of the counter up there
That's
front
all right.
there.
As
So.
long as I know, you're
Okay.
okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that Gregor kind of likes my speeches. He gives quite reasonable speeches, even though they are misguided at times. Madam Chair, anyway, my question to the Minister is really quite simple. Can she articulate to the House and to the public the reasons and to articulate them rationally as to why there has been a change in her position? Because we're happy with this bill. We're supporting this bill all the way through. We think actually it's a bill that's important because actually to the intent of effectiveness and efficiencies, which is stated in the bill, it was under a national-led government. And I'd like to remind the Minister, actually it was passed in July of 2017, last year, where there will be the disestablishment of the Families Commission. And so from our side of, and our point of view, there is no mistaking the aspect of the purpose and the reasons why we are supporting this bill. I'd like the Minister in the chair to stand and to articulate to us in this House and to the public as to the reasons why she has changed her position and to give us a rational reason as to why she is wanting to, Madam Chair, oh, here we go, Madam Chair.
I call the Honourable Alfred Ngaro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, it's an honour to keep. Thank you. Yes, Madam Chair, so I'd like the Minister to stand and to answer that question. I think that's critically important as well. There's a second question I also have for the Minister as well, Madam Chair, and that's in particular to the shortened report back date that has been asked. Now, one can be quite cynical. It can say that when one looks at the fact is that maybe they just didn't have enough work, but when there's cynicism, there has to be fact. So one needs to only look at the order paper, and when one looks at the order paper, one would see that actually a number of the bills, I'd say 80%, probably others could say 90% of the bills that are actually in here that are on the order paper have all come from the National Party. I'm not going to use that cynicism. I'm sure there's a valid reason why we've had a shortened report back date. But the important aspect of the question, second question to the Minister, is that why did we have a shortened report back date? And the reason I say that is that the Minister herself has been very strong and very clear that it's important that we have an appropriate process. And if one looks at the departmental disclosure statement, and if we look at Part 2, background material and policy information, it talks about the question in 2.1 is this: published reviews and evaluations. Are there any publicly available inquiries, reviews or evaluation reports that have informed or are relevant to the policy to be given effect by this bill? Now, if the Minister is quite clear about her purpose and her reason, then she needs to be clear about the factors is that already she's declared publicly that she's going to look for a review around data collection and data collation and the importance of that. She's asked to go out to engage with the community. It's a form of inquiry. She's talking to those who are the stakeholders, the key practitioners at the front line, also asking questions of the public. Why then did the Minister, who is using that principle of transparency or engagement in the community, and again to the disclosure statement has been very clear, clearly states that there has been no public inquiry, there has been no review, there's been no evaluation reports that have been able to inform this bill. So the second question that I think is important, I'd like the Minister to answer to us here, again, is that she's had a clear process and she's said her principles where she's engaging into the community, she's said that quite publicly. Then why in this regard that she's not actually enacted the very same principles that I think are really important as well? If you look further down through the disclosure statement, there's also in 2.3, it talks about the regulatory impact analysis. And the question that is asked is this: were any regulatory impact statements provided to inform the policy decisions that led to this bill? And the answer, Madam Chair, is no. Well, Madam Chair, I have to say that again, we've sat on the opposite side of the House. I've heard the Minister, who was a member, quite strongly talk about the importance of a regulatory impact statement. Now, all of us in the House, and maybe the members of the public don't realise the importance of a regulatory impact statement. The important what the role of the regulatory impact statement, Madam Chair, is to ensure that when we think about the analysis of any form of legislation as it's proceeding through the House, that before we get the royal assent, before it proceeds to its final reading, that we need to know what are the impacts financially, systematically as well, to other key stakeholders that are in there. In fact, I've heard the Minister as a member argue very strongly, where is the regulatory impact statement? And again, Madam Chair, I have to say, I am disappointed because I would have expected that the Minister would have asked for some form of regulatory impact statement. And again, when I look at the disclosure statement 2.3, the answer to whether there was one, the reply is no, there's not. So, Madam Chair, there are two questions, and I'm looking forward. There are other questions that I'd like to pose further on into the debate today. So again, I remind the Minister, the first question is the rationale and reason as to why she has changed her position and she is now supporting this bill through the House. And I have to say that if she wasn't fully supportive, if she questioned the bill previously and the intent of the previous National-led government, then why did she not put it under the scrutiny that she would have expected to have happened? Why is there no reviews, inquiries or evaluation? Why is there no regulatory impact statement that I would have expected that the Minister would have required before stepping forward? And as difficult as it may have been to be able to swallow the fact is that she's now having to adopt, and also to, without amendment, a bill that she spoke very strongly in the direction of from the previous government, I think it'd be important for the Minister to stand and give us a reason for that. The last question that I'd like to say is in regards to the regulatory impact analysis, why she is not required for this process to have a regulatory impact statement as well.
Madam Chair.
I call the Honourable Carmel Sepulveda.
Madam Chair, I'll just quickly respond to a few of the questions